Imagine this. After months of searching, a buyer finds the perfect home in a highly competitive seller's market. Homes are scarce, buyers are plentiful, and the competition is fierce. In this market, buyers often face tough decisions, like whether to waive a home inspection or proceed cautiously. The buyer makes a smart choice to have an inspection done, and while everything seems fine, there's a crack in the basement foundation. The sellers assure the buyer it's never been an issue, so they move forward confidently. But fast forward a month, after a heavy rain, that harmless crack turns into a gushing leak, flooding the basement. Suddenly, that dream home feels more like a nightmare. The buyer feels misled, even betrayed by the seller's assurances. Frustrated, the buyer takes legal action to hold the seller accountable. In recent years, stories like this have become more and more common, especially in hot markets where buyers feel pressured and sellers may not disclose everything. While some sellers do act in bad faith, many are simply uninformed or poorly advised. That's why in today's video, I'm sharing 5 essential tips to help you as a seller protect yourself from legal trouble and ensure a smooth and transparent transaction. Let's get started. The first thing you want to avoid: misrepresentation of property features. Accurately describing your property is essential to avoid misunderstandings, or worse, legal trouble. For example, you might have made improvements like replacing flooring, updating appliances, or installing a hot water heater that's like new. But using unclear or overly broad terms can lead to issues. Here's what you should do. Document every upgrade. Keep receipts, invoices, or contractor statements on letterhead that detail the work done, including exact dates. Avoid unverified claims. If you don't have documentation, it's better not to make specific assertions in the listing. Why does that matter? Consider the difference between new and newer. If you describe your windows as newer, but they were replaced 10 years ago, a buyer might interpret newer as within the last couple of years. This discrepancy can lead to disputes, and in some cases, even lawsuits. What's the solution? Be precise. Instead of vague terms like newer, state the actual timeline. Windows replaced in 2019. If you're unsure or lack documentation, it's best to use careful, neutral language. When crafting your property description, choose your words thoughtfully. Avoid vague or subjective language that can be misinterpreted, and always prioritize clarity and accuracy. By doing so, you set the right expectations and protect yourself from possible misunderstandings. Along the same lines, when crafting a listing description, it's natural for a selling agent to enhance the wording to highlight your home's best features. However, it's crucial to ensure that the language used doesn't inadvertently create misunderstandings or misrepresent the property. There's a fine line between embellishing and misleading, and crossing that line can lead to problems. For instance, claiming the basement is dry when in fact it got water during a heavy storm one time could easily backfire. You gotta be careful with what you say versus what is real. Additionally, agents must remain vigilant about adhering to fair housing laws, which protect against discrimination based on protected classes such as race, religion, familial status, or age. For example, describing a property as perfect for young families could exclude individuals who do not have children or who are older, while phrases like walking distance to a specific house of worship may imply religious preference or steer certain groups away. While some of these restrictions may seem overly cautious, they are essential to ensure compliance with the law. As professionals, real estate agents must carefully choose their words to accurately represent a property while, at the same time, upholding fair housing standards. Thoughtful, neutral, and factual language is not just good practice, it's the law. And then lastly, another important consideration is the full disclosure of relevant facts, even if they seem minor or occurred only once. For example, let's say your home experienced water in the basement during an unusual event, a historic snowstorm that caused widespread issues. Perhaps it was the kind of storm where homes were buried under snow, followed by rapidly rising temperatures that melted the snow, only to have the temperature plummet again the next day. Events like these can lead to roof leaks, burst pipes, ice damage, and yes, even water in basements of homes that typically stay dry. If your home was affected, even just that one time, the ethical and smart thing to do is disclose it. During the storm of specific date, we did experience water in the basement, but this was an isolated incident. We've never had water before or since. Being upfront about unique situations ensures you're not withholding important information that buyers have the right to know. And transparency always trumps hiding things. Mistake number 2, not disclosing defects. A buyer might come across a home being sold as is, where the seller implies, "I'm not responsible for anything. Whatever issues the house has are yours to deal with once you own it, buyer." But here's the thing. Selling a home as is doesn't mean you can avoid disclosure responsibilities. So what should you disclose? The simple answer? Everything. When you disclose known issues, you protect yourself from liability. Obviously, you can't be held accountable for problems you didn't know about. But if you are aware of an issue, it must be disclosed, no matter how minor it may seem. Provide documentation and receipts showing any repairs or maintenance. This creates a paper trail that protects you and builds trust with buyers. One thing to avoid is cutting corners with DIY fixes for significant problems. For example, hairline cracks in a basement's concrete walls are often normal, but larger growing cracks can signal an issue. Instead of grabbing a DIY concrete repair kit from a hardware store and hiding the problem under a rug, bring in a professional to assess and fix it properly. Keep the receipt and document the scope of the repair. Later, when selling, you can confidently show the buyer, "Yes, there was a crack, but we had it professionally repaired. Here's the proof." This kind of transparency keeps you out of legal trouble. Speaking of as-is, some sellers think that selling as-is shields them from all liability. However, that's not how it works. When listing a home, sellers are still required to disclose latent defects, hidden issues they are aware of that could affect the home's value or safety, and buyers can sue if they believe they were misled. Even with an as-is sale, concealing problems like a suspicious basement crack or a past water leak can come back to haunt you. If the buyer discovers something you deliberately hid, they could argue that had they known about the issue, they would have never purchased that home or would have paid less. To protect yourself, address issues up front. Have professionals inspect and repair serious problems, document the work, and disclose everything. Being proactive and transparent won't just save you from legal trouble, it's going to give you peace of mind during the selling process. And also, seller, put yourself in the buyer's shoes. Would you want someone to sell you a home and hide things from you, and you find out later on that the seller knew and hid them from you? Of course not. So the golden rule applies to this. Disclose, disclose, disclose. Before we dive in, I want to take a quick moment to remind you to subscribe to the channel. You can do so by hitting the button right down there. Your support helps me continue bringing you informative videos just like this one every single week. Also, if you have a real estate question, whether you're thinking about buying or selling or just curious, drop it in the comments below. I'll make sure to answer as soon as possible, and who knows, your question might be exactly what someone else is wondering too. Let's keep that conversation going. All right, let's get back to the video. Next up, let's talk about smart homes, a trend that's becoming increasingly popular across the US, especially when it comes to devices that record audio and video. While smart home technology can be increasingly useful, it's important to understand how it can affect the selling process. Recording devices in your home can inadvertently lead to privacy violations for potential buyers or their agents. Legally, you must notify anyone entering your home if they're being recorded, whether it's audio, video, or both. You might think, it's my house and I want to ensure everything is secure, like making sure the buyers left or the agent didn't leave the front door open. And while that's understandable, recording people without their knowledge is against the law. To comply, make sure you post clear signs at all entry points stating, "This home contains audio and video recording devices." This notification ensures that everyone entering your home knows they're being recorded, allowing buyers and their agents to be mindful of their conversations while viewing your property. By following this simple step, you protect yourself from potential legal issues while maintaining transparency throughout the selling process. Point 4, let's revisit that fair housing violation, an important topic I touched on earlier. Let's dive a little bit deeper. Imagine Bob moved into a new development on a cul-de-sac where all the neighbors have kids and he loves the community vibe. When Bob decides to sell his home, his neighbor Bill says,
"Bob, you should sell your home to another family with kids to keep the cul-de-sac family tradition going."
Or maybe you're an empty nester looking to downsize and you'd love for another family to raise their kids in the same home just like you did. While these feelings are natural, they can lead to trouble if they influence how you advertise or select a buyer. Years ago, and even as recently as the pandemic, buyer love letters were very common. Those letters allowed buyers to appeal emotionally to sellers, often mentioning details like how their kids and dog would love playing in the backyard. While it might seem harmless, these letters can create a significant fair housing risk for sellers. Here's why. If you receive two potential offers, same price, same conditions, but one includes a love letter from a family and the other does not, choosing the family's offer based on the letter could expose you to a fair housing violation. If the other buyer discovers they were passed over because they didn't fit your emotional preference, they could argue discrimination and you could face legal action. In the state of Maryland, one of the #1 top reasons year after year for lawsuits brought up to the Real Estate Commission is fair housing violations. Also in Maryland, many agents and brokers have taken steps to minimize these risks, discouraging buyers from writing love letters and even including instructions on the MLS agent remarks like, "No love letters, seller will not read them." But in other states, these precautions may not be as widely practiced. So as a seller, what can you do if you receive a love letter? Tell your agent up front that you don't want to see them. Make it clear that during the offer review process, these letters should not factor into your decision making. You can read them later if you're curious, but don't let them influence your choice. When selecting an offer, focus on objective factors that meet your needs. The strongest financial terms, favorable timing, or specific contingencies like a rent back period. For example, prioritize an offer with a higher price, a cash payment, or more reliable financing. These concrete factors are fair, defensible, and unrelated to a buyer's personal circumstances. Remember, choosing an offer based on the buyer's family status or any other protected characteristic can land you in hot water. Stick to measurable, practical reasons to avoid legal trouble and ensure a fair sale for everyone involved. Now, seller, you may be thinking,
how am I supposed to remember all this? I don't even want to sell my house anymore. I'm scared of the process. I don't want to put myself in a situation where I'm going to get sued.
And this may all sound a little scary for you. So then how do you protect yourself, seller? Well, I've said this now on several of my videos, but I'm a big proponent of pre-sale home inspections. Now, of course, a buyer is going to perform a home inspection, but you, seller, can do the same thing. Why would you want to do that? Well, you're paying a professional to come out and inspect your home for you. They are going to point out those water cracks or an electrical panel issue or a roof leak. That home inspection is going to reveal some of the defects and you can address these issues before putting the house on the market. That professional can help you make the call whether it's something that needs to be addressed and fixed, and now you even have a report to go with it. Again, don't DIY the repairs yourself unless you're a licensed contractor, and keep receipts of whatever repairs you've done. The other thing I've done myself, and I've seen many other agents do, they ask the sellers to come up with a list of upgrades they've done to the house with dates. Also, if you installed a new heating system or a hot water heater, provide those receipts. Try to have some sort of paperwork on those updates. Another thing you could do is make a list of the past issues you've been having and disclose. It's better to over-communicate than to under-communicate. And you may be saying, well, if I do that, then no one's gonna buy my house. That's not true. No house is absolutely perfect. Even brand new homes bought from the builder can and do have issues. Remember what disclosing is going to do. It's going to protect you from a buyer coming back and suing you for something you didn't tell them about your home. If you've informed the buyer, you made your list, and you've handed it over to them, the buyer signs it acknowledging they were disclosed. Now you have a paper trail that prior to the sale of the house, this buyer was told and they acknowledge said issue or issues. And then the very last thing, you want to have a paper trail for everything, even the conversations that you have with your agent. If an agent called you on a question the buyer had, and that was answered through a phone call, make sure you follow up with an email. Agents should be doing this anyway, but don't always do. Not all agents are proactive. Now, I personally document everything. My personal business practice is to follow up phone calls with emails, and I CC everyone that needs to see that email. Believe you me, I sleep much better at night doing so. It's just good business practice for everyday transactions, especially as large of a transaction as a real estate transaction. Selling a home can feel overwhelming with all the details to consider, but taking proactive steps, being transparent, and keeping thorough documentation can make the process much smoother. Remember, the goal isn't just to sell your home, it's to do so confidently and ethically, protecting yourself from future headaches while creating a positive experience for everyone involved. If you're planning to sell your home, chances are you're already thinking about hosting an open house. For some sellers, the thought of inviting strangers into their home can be a little nerve-wracking, but open houses don't have to be stressful. With a proven strategy, they can actually be a powerful tool to attract buyers and maximize your sale price. Curious about how to make your open house a success? Click here to check out this video where I'll share the exact formula that's helped my clients achieve incredible results. Looking for other videos on all things real estate? Then I invite you to click here and check out more videos on real estate. I'll see you here or here.